Live text access, training for real-time intralingual subtitlers.
Unit 5, Respeaking. Element 4, Editing Skills. This video lecture explains the pre-editing strategies to be applied before an event takes place and has been created by SSML and Velotype. On completion of this training sequence, you will be able to discipline yourself to practice and improve skills like gathering information and finding shortcuts and short forms. This is the agenda of this presentation. I will first look at how to gather information to then move to creating shortcuts and short forms. Section 1. Gathering information. When providing a professional intralingual subtitling service, it is very important that words, names, and acronyms are spelled correctly. Therefore, you should prepare in the best way possible. The first step is to get the agenda or schedule of a meeting. Not only will this show which topic is being presented or discussed, but also you can copy the correct spelling of the names of the speakers. In some cases, you can also receive a list of names from the participants. For example, this is relevant in a meeting or for an association. In case there is a roll call, it is also important to have this list beforehand. When presenters are going to read a speech from paper, it is of course very good to have the speech beforehand. You can either have this on paper beside you and you can read it and re-speak, or you can have it digitally played out. For example, if you use some tools like Text on Top, this will allow you to show the text instead of having to re-speak it. Secondly, it is good to have the PowerPoint file available beforehand. From these PowerPoints, you can also extract the jargon, specific words used during the meeting, but also other names and acronyms such as those of the affiliations of speakers. In addition, it is good to see if this event has taken place before and if you can find information online about it. If not, try to do research in similar events on the topic. When working in an educational setting or in a workplace, most of the time the service is being provided to only one person with a hearing impairment. As preparation for these meetings, it is very helpful if you get more information about the content of the lessons or of the meeting beforehand. In case of education, it is usually not so relevant to indicate who is speaking. Usually this will be the teacher or the professor, and his or her name is well known to participants. When questions or comments come from the students or audience, however, this can be indicated. But this can be a big challenge unless you use a platform that already says who this person who is speaking is. In case of a business meeting, for example, around the table, an overview of the people sitting around this table can help. That way, in case of a discussion or quick change of speakers, the speaker can be indicated. So that way it is clear who says what. Again, it is good to do research on the topic of the lesson or of the meeting beforehand to be prepared. When working more often in certain settings, of course, you will get more experience about the topic and build up a dictionary or glossary of the words that are most commonly used. For TV subtitling, we will only look at live and semi-live programs. Prepared subtitling is out of the scope. With semi-live programs, you are able to receive texts or videos beforehand, so prepare a number of possible subtitles which can be played out during broadcast. This could, for example, be short videos or of interviews, but also the auto cue text of the newsreader or scripts, which you can use to prepare subtitles. From these videos and texts, you can also collect names and words that might be used in the live parts of the broadcast. For sports programs, research can be done about the specific sport itself. It is important to know how to spell certain vocabulary used in that type of sports. Of course, the spelling of the people mentioned is very important. For news programs, it is important to keep up to date with the current topics. Names and words can easily be researched. Make sure you use the same spelling as your subtitling colleagues. For example, using a whiteboard in the subtitling department showing the current topics and spelling of names is very useful. And as for talk shows, it is good to find out which people will participate in the show and do a bit of research about their background. When working as a parliamentary speaker, you are normally working for the same people, that is, the members of the parliament. These names and the names of their parties must be in the software vocabulary for the whole duration of the legislature. On top of them, you should also add the names of people who work together with the parliament, like ministers, the head of state, and the like. For each session, you always have an agenda. The agenda contains the topics that are going to be discussed. Normally, it is a law to be discussed and voted, or the question time with the government. Besides the agenda, you always have preparation material like proposals, a previous parliamentary report, the summary report, or other annexes. Some software programs allow you to fit them with digital documents, and they automatically spot the ones that are not present in the vocabulary. In case your software does not, you can always do it manually. Section 2. Shortcuts and short forms. When preparing the software for a conference, the eSpeaker has different tools available. The most common one is to insert new words to the vocabulary. This is very useful when it comes to technical terms or other words that are not in the software vocabulary, like proper names or affiliations or other similar words. In the case of a name and a surname, I recommend to insert both together as one item to avoid that names that sound like common words like Barry White appear in lowercase. Some software programs also allow you to add specific sub-vocabularies. Sub-vocabularies are very useful for conference subtitlers who must subtitle a different topic each time. When some words are too similar to existing ones and you fear they are not going to be correctly recognized by the machine, you can always use macros. A macro is a word that you pronounce in a different way to be sure it is correctly recognized. For example, pretend you have to subtitle the CEO of a company whose name is For You, spelled in 2 characters, the number 4 and the letter U. In this case, you can add a macro to the machine vocabulary and associate the name of this company to a spoken input that says macro for you. Each time you want the name of the company appear on the screen correctly spelled, you only need to say macro for you to have it correctly spelled on the screen. You can also use macros for long formulas that are often used. For example, if you want to say Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II, you can create a macro called Macro Queen and have the whole title appear correctly spelled. Similarly to a macro is the house style. A house style is the way a client wants a word to appear on screen. In this case, there are not alternative spellings, only a spelling that differs to a standard one. This is the case of those compound words that require a hyphen. By the time the hyphen normally disappears, but for a while the 2 spellings coexist. If a client wants one of these 2 spellings, then you go for that. And you can change the word in the software vocabulary to suit the client's needs. Finally, if you don't manage to have a word recognized as it should be because it is too difficult to pronounce, you can always think of personalizing the pronunciation by changing the spoken form, the written form of that word is associated to. Summary. In this video lecture, we have seen some pre-editing strategies or strategies to be applied before a speech takes place. In particular, to avoid and reduce mistakes during the subtitling job, we have seen how to collect terminological information for each context: a TV program, a conference speech, a parliamentary session, a meeting, or a school class. Then we have also seen how to create short forms and shortcuts in general. Exercises. The exercises for this video lecture are in the trainer's guide for this unit, Unit 5, and in the PowerPoint presentation. All materials are available also on our website at www.ltaproject.eu.
LTA Live Text Access, Universitat Autónoma de Barcelona, SDI, Internationale Hochschule, Scuola Superiore per Mediatori Linguistici, ZDF Digital, European Federation of Hard of Hearing People FHO, Velotype, Subti Access, European Certification and Qualification Association ECQA. Co-funded by the Erasmus Plus program of the European Union. Erasmus Plus project 2018-1-DE01-KA203-004218. The information and views set on this presentation are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the official opinion of the European Union. Neither the European Union institutions and bodies, nor any person acting on their behalf, may be held responsible for the use which may be made of the information contained here.